Welcome to the deep dive. So today we're jumping into the world of modern love and dating. We're using some really interesting source material you shared with us.
That's right. Think of this as a shortcut, really. A way to get the key takeaways on how relationships work now without you having to wade through tons of stuff.
Exactly. The material itself, it's kind of a narrative journey, right? Through dating, connection, commitment, all that.
It touches on romance, dating culture, even personal growth. It's got some real emotional depth.
So our mission basically is to pull out those, those aha moments about finding love, keeping love in this modern age, tailored for you to get you up to speed quickly.
Okay, so where do we start? The beginning, I suppose.
Yeah, let's start right at the beginning. The source kicks off with, well, the swipe. Dating apps. Our guide here is Emily.
Yes, Emily, and she's right in it, swiping away.
Right, and she has this great line early on, says, online dating feels like shopping for souls with bad lighting.
Huh. That's good. Very relatable, I imagine, for many people. That sort of instant, maybe superficial judgment.
Totally. And you see it in action. She swipes past the guy holding up a giant fish.
Classic fish pic.
Yeah. And the shirtless gym selfie. Seen that one a few times.
Oh, definitely. Those are almost like archetypes.
But then, one profile does stand out. It's a guy, and he's got a picture with his corgi, wearing sunglasses.
Okay, see, that's different. That little bit of personality, maybe humor, it cuts through the noise.
That's what it seemed like. It shows how that initial filtering, while maybe feeling a bit shallow, is also looking for signals.
Exactly. It highlights the challenge, right? How do you show your real self in a tiny profile? But those small details, like the dog in shades, they can hint at compatibility. Shared humor, maybe?
Yeah, seems so. And it works, because she swipes right and gets a match. Nate, the graphic designer.
Okay, Nate enters the picture.
And his first message, okay, it's pretty corny. He says, if you were a vegetable, you'd be a cucumber.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's bold.
She admits it's cheesy. But, crucially, it made her smile. And from there, the messages apparently flowed really easily.
That's interesting. So the corniness landed, somehow.
Seems like it. They found common ground music, memes, sending dog pictures back and forth. It shows how that text rapport can build.
And that initial communication style, that click, is actually really important. It suggests something about basic compatibility, how they connect.
Right. And Nate even follows up on the joke on their first date. He actually brings her a cucumber.
He did. Okay, that's kind of funny. Shows he's playful, willing to bridge that online banter to the real world.
Yeah, which can be a hurdle sometimes.
Okay.
So the first date itself, they meet for coffee. The weather's bad, apparently, but the connection, it's there.
Okay.
But the source describes it really interestingly, not as like fireworks or instant drama, but a soft spark that doesn't burn but glows.
I like that. Doesn't burn but glows. That feels significant.
Why is that, do you think?
Well, it contrasts with that intense, maybe unsustainable infatuation we sometimes expect. That soft glow, it sounds more like. Well, maybe the beginning of genuine comfort, mutual respect. Something potentially more lasting.
Like a slow burn instead of a firework.
Exactly. Psychologically, it could point towards secure attachment forming, which we know is pretty vital for relationships that go the distance.
Makes sense. So that coffee date, it's promising, and things progress. They move into that, well, that slightly awkward phase.
The what are we stage.
Yeah. Well, the unspoken stuff. Are they seeing other people? What labels apply? The source really captures how tricky that can feel today. Necessary, but also kind of scary.
Definitely. It taps into that modern dating anxiety, doesn't it? The ambiguity, the fear of being vulnerable or getting it wrong.
Totally.
And the narrative suggests Emily and Nate eventually just talked about it directly.
Yeah, seems that way. And their directness, their honesty about it was apparently a bit of a turning point.
Which underlines how important just clear communication is for navigating all that uncertainty. It cuts through the guesswork.
Right. And that honesty sort of clears the way for what the story calls the honeymoon phase.
Okay, the good bit.
Yeah, the classic stuff. Dates turning into overnights, learning each other's little quirks, inside jokes starting, and eventually the first I love yous. But what really struck me were the smaller things mentioned, like Nate bringing Emily tea when she was sick.
Yes. Those smaller moments, they're actually huge, aren't they?
How so?
Well, grand gestures are nice, but it's that consistent, everyday care, noticing the small needs, showing up when someone's feeling low that really builds the deep emotional bond. It's about genuine care, not just the initial excitement.
Moving beyond infatuation, like you said earlier.
Precisely. But, Relationships aren't always smooth sailing, are they? The narrative doesn't shy away from that.
No, it doesn't. Challenges pop up, arguments start, and it highlights their different styles, communication, expectations.
Okay, the reality check.
Yeah. Emily apparently felt Nate could withdraw emotionally, while Nate found Emily maybe a bit overly critical sometimes.
Fairly common conflict patterns, actually.
And there's this line where one of them says, "I don't want us to become strangers." That really captures the fear when conflict hits, doesn't it?
It really does. And it marks that shift from the idealized beginning to the messy reality of merging two lives, two different ways of being. Compatibility isn't about never fighting.
Right.
It's about figuring out how to handle those disagreements constructively, how to repair things afterwards.
And adding another layer of complexity, their pasts come into play.
Ah, the baggage. Always there.
Yeah. Both Emily and Nate had stuff from previous relationships, infidelity, betrayal that kind of bubbled up, created doubts, tested their trust.
It's such a key point. We don't come to new relationships with a clean slate. Those past hurts, they shape how we react now.
So how do they handle that?
Well, the narrative brings in couples therapy, which is presented as a really proactive step,
Okay.
a way for them to unpack that baggage, learn better ways to talk, especially about the hard stuff. And there's a great quote from the therapist mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
Something like, love is not about avoiding fights. It's about learning how to fight fair.
That's really good. Really practical.
It's a core lesson, I think. And it seems to help them. The story jumps forward a year after that.
Right, to the proposal. Nate proposes. It's during just a normal walk in the park.
Low-key, then.
Yeah, very grounded. And what he actually says isn't about some perfect fairy tale forever. It's more like a commitment to keep choosing her every day.
That focus on choice, on the ongoing active decision to be in the relationship, that feels very modern but also very meaningful.
It felt more real than grand promises somehow.
Because marriage or any long-term commitment isn't really a finish line, is it? It's the start of a different kind of journey. And the story seems to show that.
It does. It talks about that shift from the intensity of early romance to something deeper, more companionate.
Companionate love, yeah.
Yeah.
Where it's about building a life together, the day-to-day stuff, supporting careers, planning for the future, navigating challenges as a team.
And within that, the idea of love itself seems to evolve for them. It's less about just the feeling
Right.
and more about the conscious commitment, showing up, caring, growing together. Emily has this realization, love isn't a fairy tale. It's better. It's real.
That's a powerful shift in perspective, moving from the idealized version to appreciating the resilience, the reality of enduring love. It's built through shared history, through weathering storms.
So wrapping up this deep dive then, we've gone from that initial swipe through all the stages, the anxieties, the joys, the challenges, right up to marriage and redefining love, all based on your source material.
We've seen how technology plays a role, the unspoken rules, the cultural shifts.
But underneath it all, what the story seems to keep coming back to is that fundamental human thing, right?
Right.
Wanting to be really seen, to be chosen, to be loved for who you actually are.
Absolutely. And the way the narrative ends, it kind of emphasizes that finding that real connection amidst all the noise and options, well, it still feels pretty remarkable, almost miraculous in its own way.
Yeah, that idea of the greatest miracle being finding someone real in the middle of endless swipes, which leaves us and you with a final thought to maybe chew on in this world that gives us so many choices, maybe too many sometimes. What actually makes a connection feel that profound, like a miracle?
And beyond just feeling its spark, how can we actively create the conditions for those genuine connections to really take root and, well, flourish long after that first swipe?
Something to think about. Thanks for exploring this with us today on The Deep Dive.